Stand up here with us. We can put it right there, spot. We're just practicing social distancing there. Right there, if you want. Yeah, step up there. Thank you for joining us. I want to thank all of you for joining us, and good afternoon. With me on the stage is Council President Jolin Clark, Matt Mueller, who is our Executive Director of the Emergency Operations Center. We have Dr. Robin Wittenstein, the CEO of Denver Health and Hospital Authority, and Bob McDonald, the Executive Director of Public Health and Environment, are here. I want to thank them for joining us, and I want to thank all of you for joining us as well for this very important public health update. Yesterday, Governor Polis issued a new order implementing a statewide strategy to enforce physical distancing, including a directive to businesses that they move to reduce their in-person employee presence at workplaces by 50%. The governor described the challenge in very stark terms. The reality is that because we do not have enough tests to implement a test and isolate strategy nationally, and has been underway in Singapore and South Korea, governors and mayors have been left with the blunt instrument of stay-at-home orders and extreme physical distancing directives. I fully support the governor and strongly encourage businesses to implement work-from-home policies and delivery of goods to the greatest extent possible. The governor and I talk every day, and I could not be more pleased with the close coordination and care he has shown for Denver and all our communities in this extraordinary health crisis. The city and county of Denver is doing its part. In fact, we began the process of moving roughly 90% of our workforce to work from home last week. Every metro area jurisdiction needs to follow the broad consensus among public health professionals, because regional awareness and coordination will make these steps work. I've spoken with metropolitan area mayors and county commissioners, and we discussed the challenge and great value of working and executing in a coordinated way. Our challenge is that Denver is the population center for the state. We're the densest area in the state, and right now we have the highest number of positive cases in the state. Because of that, we need to take extra steps to secure the public health and safety of our community. We can also act responsibly as the largest metro community to help all of Colorado. That's why today we are issuing a stay-at-home public health order for the city and county of Denver, which will go in effect at 5 p.m. tomorrow and be in effect until April 10th or extended if necessary. Again, I spoke with Governor Polis about this next step in Denver and the new step that we are taking, and he is very supportive. We want to do everything we can to amplify the mitigation efforts the governor and his team are taking. It's very important that every Denver resident comply with this order. This isn't a recommendation anymore. People need to stay at home. We're going to educate residents on what this new order means, and our primary response to discourage anything beyond the exceptions laid out in our stay-at-home order. But we will enforce when and where necessary. Every effort needs to be made by all of us to conduct only those activities that are essential to the health and well-being, such as grocery stores, obtaining medical supplies or medication, and exercise, as long as physical distancing practices are strictly followed. People and businesses need to take physical distancing seriously if we're going to make meaningful impact on the spread of this virus. We saw some things this weekend that helped me to move toward this very bold decision. In some of our parks, we saw organized or loosely organized sporting activities such as volleyball games and basketball games. We saw picnics. These are the things that will be prohibited under this order and are very important that we stop in order to end the spread of this virus in our community. And so many of our residents are taking the situation very seriously, and I can't thank them enough for staying home and helping us to work toward flattening this curve. Here's why it's important. Our healthcare delivery system doesn't just serve Denver or the metropolitan area. In emergency situations, it's also here to help our fellow Coloradoans living in the mountain towns, out in the eastern plains, and over in the western slope. We can't let our hospitals get overwhelmed. We need to support our doctors, nurses, and first responders, now more than ever. So if you're sick, stay home. If you're not sick, you need to stay home, too. It's incredible to see how many of you are donating personal protective equipment, and we thank you for that. We are doing an assessment of our PPE supply now and should have a better sense of which items we will need in these situations or as the situations continue to progress. And if you're healthy, we ask you to please consider donating blood if you're able. We know that these stay-at-home orders are tough on many people, especially our older adults, residents living with disabilities, and so many others. We want to continue to encourage folks to be smart and strategic about their purchasing. Do not panic buy. This order by no means is a change in the attitude and the belief that, as I shared last week, that we should not be panic buying. It puts everyone in a very precarious position when we do that. You do not need to do that. You can go to the grocery store to grab your essential items, but then again, return back home as necessary. I want to assure our business community, especially our small businesses, that we are with you for the long haul. In addition to our Small Business Emergency Relief Fund, we are mobilizing an Economic Relief and Recovery Council with business leaders across industry sectors to recommend and oversee relief efforts during every phase of this health emergency. It's about survival, stabilization, and long-term economic recovery for Denver. So we're not only focused on today, but we are beginning to look forward and how Denver will begin to recover from these economic challenges. The city and many of our partners have been working tirelessly to support our local businesses and workers in any way we can. For example, ToGoDenver.com has a running list of restaurants offering pickup and delivery service. Consider supporting those businesses and their employees. We all need to do our part to reverse the spread of the virus. And my message to everyone in Denver is this: stay informed, have patience, keep your spirits up as we work to protect all residents during this time. Your health and safety is my top priority right now and will continue to be always. We're going to get to the other side of this. I believe it in my heart, and we can get there faster if everyone follows these orders and stays at home. Let me close with this. These are not easy decisions. It's one reason why I've spent time talking to mayors across the nation about their decisions as we contemplate whether to shut down the cities, as well as governors to shut down their states. I can tell you that there are three things that mayors have taken into consideration as they've made these tough decisions. One is the history. In 1918, with the flu epidemic, as well as SARS and other epidemics that have come our way. Cities and regions that have acted quickly and boldly have done a better job of getting on top of the issue and acting effectively on behalf of their constituencies. Secondly, the trends. The trends are not going in the right direction, and the incremental steps that we have taken are not really beginning to move the needles as fast as we need them to move to protect the residents of our cities. The reality is that public health professionals have been advising us that this is the right direction to move for several days now. And with Denver, again, being the most densest metropolitan region in the state, it makes sense that we move more boldly to address these issues going forward. And then finally, we know that our steps from closing down restaurants and bars and spas and barbershops, beauty shops, and hair and nail salons and other businesses are wreaking havoc on our economy. Many people are out of work. The bolder and quicker we move, the faster we can end this economic trauma in our economy. We don't want to extend the economic pain of the people of Denver. And that's why we have to take bold moves to begin to help this city get on the other side of this curve and begin to flatten this curve. I know the first question will be how you will enforce this. First, we need voluntary compliance from the people of this city. We need you to stay home. If you're not on the essential list, if you're not making a run to the grocery store, or to get something that's essential for you and your family during this time, we ask you to stay home. And so we're going to do everything we can to educate and inform and to discourage the residents of Denver from moving about. And then we're going to enforce as necessary, whenever and however we have to make sure that we comply with this public health order. This is not a recommendation. It is now an order for the city and county of Denver to stay at home. I will now open it up for questions.
As we start questions, just a note to the media that you'll receive the full public health order and the press release shortly here, and the public health order will be up on denvergov.org by the time the press conference ends. Go ahead.
Okay, so my question is that there was a updated amendment the other day that was saying that everything for more than 10 people shall be canceled or postponed until May 11th. So is that still in effect as well? Because it's on the City of Denver homepage.
For those businesses that fall under our activities, fall under that order, we are now asking for all activities to be canceled and to follow this order to stay at home. And so this order will take precedence going forward.
So it's April 30th instead of May 11th, Mayor?
This order will take precedence until April the 10th going forward.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, this is Mindy McNeil with Rocky Mountain Public Media. The other question I have is, how will the city determine when the crisis has passed?
I'm going to ask Bob McDonald to come here and address that, because that is a question we're all trying to answer, not only here in Denver, but across the country.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to just say that these decisions are very complicated, very difficult decisions, but we're being very thoughtful with them. You know, we wanted to start out with this time frame so that we could take a look at the number of cases that occur during the next 2 or 3 weeks under this new order. We want to keep track of what testing is telling us and see how testing ramps up. Take a look at the curve of cases. Those are all the things that we'll be looking at over the next couple of weeks to determine if we can end this order at that time or potentially extend it if necessary.
Mr. Mayor, this is Joe St. George with Fox 31. Quick question on enforcement one more time here. Are police going to be patrolling parks? Do you envision that taking place? And just as a point of clarification, does this mean if you're a non-essential worker in the city of Denver, come Wednesday morning, you won't be reporting to work? Your order supersedes what the governor has said in regards to reducing the workforce by 50%.
So let's clarify. You're right. So enforcement will include several entities. Our park rangers are going to be in our parks. Though we're not closing the parks, we're encouraging people to walk, to hike, but to also practice physical distancing. We will be closing our playgrounds so that the park rangers will be charged with monitoring that. So if you're walking in the park and we're not seeing the exercise of physical distancing, that might be where the ranger just comes in and educates, informs, and discourages your close proximity at that point in time. Police will be involved in terms of the street, being involved in the public discourse. Again, making sure that people are practicing, physical distancing, but also following the normal course of the law in the city of Denver. And then, of course, our business inspectors will be out there. If you are a business and you're supposed to be closed, our goal is to inform and educate you and to discourage your continual operation before we have to move in with enforcement. But we will have procedures available for every one of these levels. And you may see some of our city employees redeployed, helping with the soft education and information sharing about what you're supposed to be doing or not doing. But the goal is for all of us to follow these orders. We got a question here in the
And
room.
Mayor, just as a final follow-up,
Yeah.
sir, you said on Friday that you didn't want to issue an order unless it was done regionally or at the state level.
Yep.
What changed since Friday?
So I've remained in contact with our regional county commissioners and mayors. I think you're going to find or see one of the challenges that I always presented in terms of a regional solution was the difference in governance structure. As mayor of a combined government of city and county, I can work with city council to make this decision. I want to thank Councilman Clark, the president of city council, for being here, and the members of council who I consulted and spoke with as well on this issue. Those cities and the other jurisdictions, you're going to find, I think, see some of them begin to at least ask the very critical question and consult with their public health advisors and administrators on this decision as well. We can act faster as a city, but we know that many of them, as I've encouraged them on the phone to do today, is to begin their consultation, and some of them may be taking votes. Let me say this as well, Joe, because I think this is an important note. If you look around the country, capital cities or major cities in many of these states that have now instituted stay-at-home bans or stay-at-home orders have also started with the major cities leading the way. And though I wanted to make sure, see that we can all do it together, time is of the essence right now. And I think me acting unilaterally with consultation and information sharing with our surrounding jurisdictions further underscores the sense of urgency that I felt like we as a city have.
Mayor,
Yes.
Katie Rose for
Mayor Hancock.
CBS Denver.
We have a question here on the floor.
A quick question about what this means for the airport. Are flights still allowed to leave?
Yes.
And will there be further enforcement of social distancing at DIA?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question. The airport will continue to operate. Obviously, there is a federal advisement that we would have to go through if we wanted to shut down the airport outside of an imminent threat of safety. Somebody needs to mute their phone.
Not the first in Colorado, as a week ago, San Miguel
Somebody
County,
on the line needs to
county
mute their
around
phone so we can continue the
Southwest
press conference,
Colorado
please.
Went under a stay-at-home order along.
Somebody's gone live.
White House bringing
So the airport is still operating as it is, and you can still move for transportation purposes or for traveling.
And regarding
Regarding
enforcement of social distancing at the airport, is there any direction there for those folks?
Yeah, I think you'll see the community or customer service and police at the airport still doing what they can to encourage, to inform, educate, and discourage folks from violating the physical distancing requirements that are out there. So yes, they'll go to people and they'll encourage them to separate and create 6 feet distancing there.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. That was worse than my phone ringing during the last press conference.
Next question on the media line.
I have a
Mayor
question.
Hancock,
Hi, this is Connor from Westward. So dispensaries and liquor stores, are they considered essential, or are they going to be closed?
Well, as far as the liquor store and I'm concerned, yes, very essential. But I'm looking over at our city attorney, the liquor stores and dispensaries. Marty, you want to come up? I don't want to give the wrong information, but I think we've allowed them to continue operating, particularly for the medical marijuana, right?
Marley Bordowski with the City Attorney's Office. Great question. Liquor stores are not considered essential businesses, nor are recreational marijuana stores. Medical marijuana stores will remain open.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Mayor Hancock, I have
Yeah.
a quick question. I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit more about enforcement. Like, will there be police out, ticketing people who are, who are leaving their homes? How will the police, monitor who's going where? If you could just get into what enforcement means.
You know what? This is not about arresting people or putting people, criminal citation. The enforcement in that end, that's the last step for us. We're going to, again, start with educating the people who are, if we see them on the street, if people are out and about, checking their reason for being out, and understanding that. So that it's not about that area of enforcement unless you absolutely are deciding to defy the order that is in place without any particular reason other than you just want to defy the order. We want to inform, we want to discourage, and then we'll enforce as necessary. And so the police will not be the only ones that are out there. They have procedures in which to work with businesses as well as individuals. But you will also, again, will have park rangers, you have business inspectors, and maybe some redeployed city employees who are helping us with the enforcement mechanism. The goal is to get voluntary compliance first, and then we will step up from there.
Go ahead,
Mayor,
Conrad.
this is Conrad with the Denver Post. Sorry to interrupt. I'm curious if you have an understanding or an idea of how many more businesses will close under this order.
We don't have that information right here, right now. But again, we are encouraging businesses that are not essential or listed as non-essential to close until April the 10th. That list of those exempted criterion will be on the Denver Gov website at the conclusion of this press conference.
Mayor Hancock and Mayor Esteban Hernandez with Denver and Colorado Public Radio. Can you just clarify the going to parks things? I mean, they're still going to be open, but you have to stay at home. How does someone balance that? How does that work?
Well, here's what we're asking you not to do. Not to have organized volleyball games, basketball games, pickup, whatever. You can walk on the trails. You can hike. We want people to be able to exercise, walk their dogs, and still practice physical distancing, which is critical. But what we're not going to allow to happen are those type of things that we saw this weekend, where we saw volleyball games occurring and pickup basketball games occurring in our parks around the city.
Mayor Hancock, a quick question for you, and a quick question for Bob McDonald, if possible. This is Kyle Clark with 9 News. I'm curious, Mr. Mayor, whether you have tried to change Governor Polis's mind to urge him to move to a statewide stay-home order. And then for Bob McDonald, increasing evidence out of Italy suggests that hospitals were the main source of passing COVID-19, and they are urging other hospitals to decentralize care, to go to a home care model when possible. Is that something that Denver is exploring? Thank you.
Kyle, the governor and I have, as I mentioned, daily conversations, and we've talked about a range of possibilities for the state as well as for Denver and the metro region. I shared with him my concern about Denver going it alone, and that I'd rather for it to be the state and the metro region. He certainly understood that, but I also understood and respected his position in that there's a whole state out there that he has to be concerned about. Some that have not even seen one case of presumptive positive yet, and so he had to be considerate of them. And I believe that the incremental step that he took with the 50% employee reduction made sense for the state of Colorado, for the dense area of Denver. As I shared with him today, and he understood, again, from the days of conversation we had, he understood why we would have to make that decision in Denver and hopefully, ultimately, as a region. So I'll ask Dr. Wittenstein or Bob if they want to address the hospital question.
Sure. I'm Robin Wittenstein, the CEO of Denver Health and Hospital Authority. Hospitals have done a number of things to try to maintain the safest possible environment for our patients. All of them have canceled elective surgeries. All procedures that are not critically necessary in the next 3 months have been canceled and will be rescheduled later on in the year. We are asking patients not to come into the clinics, not to come into the hospital. Call ahead, ask questions of providers. There are lines that are available for those calls so that we can keep as many people out as possible. We are all cohorting anybody who is a positive COVID patient into areas of the hospital. Every hospital in the city and county of Denver is in the process of expanding its intensive care capabilities as rapidly as possible. We are facing shortages of tests and of personal protective equipment, so we are trying to keep people out and not have them come into the hospital. But every single hospital employee at this point is gowned, is wearing face masks so that they can protect both themselves, but most importantly, protect our patients. I think you'll continue to see that type of work go forward. We are exploring hospital care at home at this point in time so that we can keep patients who don't require high levels of intensive care in their own homes and provide them with daily or twice daily doctor or nurse visits so that they can, via telemedicine, so that they can get the care that they need. But we are well aware of the fact that concentrating large numbers of people who have positive virus is a way of potentially exposing others. So we're doing everything we can, not just at Denver Health, but at every single hospital in the city and county of Denver to protect our patients.
Mayor Hancock, this is Katie Eastman with 9 News.
Go ahead, Katie.
Hey, sorry. Oh, Okay, I'm going to ask a question. In California, some cities have said that their stay-at-home or shelter-in-place order means that you can only see people that you live with and be in close proximity with them. Is that what this order would mean?
Yeah, we ask you to stay home. So whoever's in that house with you, obviously you'll see. But, we also understand that people have, for example, I do, an older adult who I care greatly about and like to check in on. And I believe that's one of the activities where you're able to move about. If you have an older adult that you're going to check in on, like I do my mother, we understand that, and we want you to check in on your mother if you're healthy, obviously. Or any older adult in your life, or other vulnerable resident or neighbor or friend in your life. We need you to check on them. But again, be mindful of the exceptions in which we allow, or we're asking people to move about. Those are very critical, because if you're outside of that, then we're going to ask you to return back home.
Mayor Hancock, will restaurants still be allowed to do takeout orders?
Say it one more time. I didn't hear the question.
No worries. Will restaurants still be allowed to do to-go orders?
Yes.
And
Mayor
what
Hancock,
about liquor stores? Will they be allowed to start delivering alcohol? And then also, are you telling anything to public transit operators about who they should be allowing on or off when it comes to just kind of people moving around the city?
So liquor stores are not going to be allowed to deliver as per the order. But you have a question about transit. Transportation is one of the exempted areas of the order.
It is, and it exempts public transportation, it exempts taxis, rideshare services, that kind of thing. Transportation still is critical to our infrastructure, and so it was exempted.
Thanks,
Mayor, yesterday, the governor said, quote, "There is no civil law enforcement authority that is in a position in any city or state to enforce these kind of orders." How are you going to do that with the governor essentially saying that this is impossible to actually enforce?
Listen, we certainly agree that the enforcement mechanism of any type of order is challenging. We start with voluntary compliance. That is where we get the greatest movement on these type of orders. This is not, again, it's not about bringing a hammer to this order and people's lives. This is about voluntary compliance, and then we'll do everything we can as we come in contact with people outside this order to educate and discourage. And then only at last resort do we use any kind of legal or criminal enforcement on this. But it is about voluntary compliance, and I believe the people of Denver will follow through. This is the government's way, as a mayor of the city, for me to underscore how important and serious it is for us to comply and to work together. And only together are we able to get through this. To work together to get on the other side and to flatten this curve and get on the other side of it. And only by us all being in compliance, voluntarily, staying at home, are we going to be able to make our efforts effective.
Mayor, this is Conrad again with the Denver Post.
Try again.
What does this mean for breweries, Mr. Mayor? Did they have to shut down now?
Yes.
What about marijuana shops, Mayor?
Recreational marijuana shops are not exempted under this order. Medical marijuana operations are allowed to continue to operate.
Mayor, does this order prohibit the city school district from continuing their meal distribution, or their planning for distributing computers and devices to students later this week?
No, and I did have a conversation with the superintendent last week about this very thing. Nothing in this order would prohibit that. Those activities, I should say.
Mayor, how is the stay-at-home order going to be enforced with people that are unhoused living outside?
We're doing everything we can, and I'm glad Britta Fisher is here. Come on up, Britta. She comes up. She and her team over at Host have been working around the clock to secure, of course, shelter capacity, respite care, and alternative housing for our people experiencing homelessness, and I'm going to ask her to update us.
Thanks for that question. Our purpose is the same as it has always been. Whenever we have contact with people without housing, it's in order to get them connected to services and housing and those resources. And so we'll continue to encourage folks to have those resources at this time. To reiterate, our strategy overall is to support our existing shelters, to set up supplemental shelters that allow for greater social distancing, and then to also have respite rooms. I want to thank the community. Our office has gotten a lot of inquiries today, even about motels, hotels that are willing to step up and work with us on how we can have respite rooms. So thank you to that ongoing response.
Mr. Mayor, Joe St. George here again, and apologies for that mute debacle previously.
I knew that was you, George. I didn't want to call you out, though.
Issue. Other states have decided that liquor stores are essential. They're keeping them open. As far as I understand, you're closing them tomorrow at 5 p.m. Why making it not? Why is this different from New York City, for instance?
We do not have them listed as essential, Joe. And I just checked over. I believe that's yes, it is the case from the city attorney's office. As much as I might think it's essential for me, it's not essential for everyone. But as I don't mean to be in jest with that, but the reality is that we do not see that as an essential service. Tonight would be the opportunity for you to go grab supply if you need a resupply.
Mayor, this is Katie Eastman with 9 News again. Will you be doing anything to try to limit the amount of people in grocery stores at a time?
No, we ask, of course, the grocery stores to do what they can to monitor and manage social distancing or the physical distancing that's required under the current orders that's part of every one of these orders. That is critical. And I want to thank our grocery store industry, retail industry, for what they're doing. Not only their around-the-clock efforts to keep the shelves stocked, but many of them have made provisions so that our older adults can come in exclusively at a certain hour or time of day to do their shopping, and they can get in and get out. And I want to thank them for taking the extraordinary steps that they've taken as part of this health crisis.
Mayor Hancock, this is Jay Boucher from 5280 Magazine. Question specific to construction sites and construction workers. First, will construction sites be shut down? Secondly, will construction stores be open? And what is your plan for the construction workforce? Thank you.
So the construction workforce, if you're in transportation, construction projects, housing will remain operational. Public infrastructure, other public infrastructure type construction will continue on. I want to see from Marty if there's other further clarification I want to make on that issue or you want to make here. But our goal is to, and I think it's important. I'll let Marty come and outline the technical side of it, but I want to say something about keeping construction moving.
Specifically, public works construction would be exempt from this. Construction of housing, very specifically, would be exempt, especially affordable housing. Government construction for public infrastructure, and any construction that's necessary to support or maintain an essential business would also be allowed. So that's pretty critical exemption.
Okay. And I just want to add, thank you, Marley. As we have seen over the years, and you can study this in Denver's history, particularly in the 07, 08 era, where we had the latest, most recent economic recession, it was the construction industry being expedited and accelerated that kept really the economy alive. As every other parts of the economy were dying, we try to accelerate the construction industry. So I am a believer that it's important as best we can to keep the construction industry moving, because that industry, more than any other industry, represents the full body of our economy and is helping to keep activated other parts of the economy. We're going to need them as we get on the other side of this to help continue to serve as our foundation and help continue with the power and impetus, if you will, behind our economic recovery. One more question, and then we'll call it.
And what about daycare centers? I know that there's some daycare centers that say that they feel like they're being taken advantage of because there's some employers that won't let their employees stay home. Are you going to let the daycare centers stay home, or is this order doing anything for the daycare centers at all?
Daycare centers are exempted under this order. Again, I invite everyone to go to. We'll issue the exemption list probably now at the conclusion of this presser, and we invite everyone to go to the denvergov.org website and to find that list in its entirety. Thank you all.
One more question, Mayor. The people that live in Denver but work outside, can they still go to work in other cities?
I think you're going to see that that will be problematic. We are asking folks to stay at home, and I think as we continue on with this effort in the metropolitan region, you may find other jurisdictions beginning to follow. So here's the reality. Denver grows by 23% every day. So we have more of a in-migration than we have a migration in the city of Denver. And the reality is that we have got to help employees, workers who are coming into the city know that this city is being shut down outside of essential businesses, operations, in businesses and operations in the city of Denver. Hopefully that helps, and employers who are in the city of Denver who have employees coming in or going out also take heed to the fact that we're going to get on the other side of this by everybody cooperating and staying at home. Thank you all.